Convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell is now filing a motion to have her 20-year conviction overturned by a federal appeals court.
So in the appeal filed in court, Maxwell's legal team arguing that the 60-year-old former partner of accused child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein was railroaded by federal prosecutors due to her relationship with the disgraced Wall Street financier. The motion further accusing prosecutors of encouraging juror misconduct, violating the statute of limitations in their charges, and disregarding a 2007 non-prosecution agreement between Epstein and federal prosecutors in Miami. Big question, does she have a case here?
We're going to take it up in National Report Court. For the purposes of this segment, former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney Randy Zellin could be providing the side of Ghislaine Maxwell, what her attorneys would argue. And then on the opposite side would be Touro University professor Thane Rosenbaum. Gentlemen, welcome, and thank you very much for coming on. Randy, if you could, walk us through Maxwell's appeal. How would she go about making her case in court?
Well, she has a practical argument and she's got a legal argument. And the practical argument really is the one that should control, as ridiculous as that might sound, because we have contracts, we have letters, we have the law, and then we have reality, we have the spirit. There is a document out there that basically says that we're going to globally resolve all of Jeffrey Epstein's problems. This non-prosecution agreement that Arthur Aidala, and Arthur is a wonderful lawyer and a good friend, I'll make that disclosure, has argued. And that non-prosecution agreement, if not the letter, the spirit of it should be that Ms. Maxwell should not be prosecuted. That plays into the larger issue, which is, would she be prosecuted at all if Jeffrey Epstein had not died? And I would respectfully submit that any common sense analysis would be absolutely, positively, she would not have been prosecuted. Jeffrey Epstein would have been prosecuted. And she is, in fact, a proxy for the defendant here.
Interesting point. Thane, looking at the motion that we're discussing filed by Maxwell's team, it reads in part this: in its zeal to pin the blame for its own incompetence and for Epstein's crimes on Maxwell, the government breached its promise not to prosecute Maxwell, charged her with time-barred offenses, resurrected and recast decades-old allegations for conduct previously ascribed to Epstein and other named assistants, and joined forces with complainant civil attorneys whose interests were financial to develop new allegations that would support charges against Maxwell, unquote. So, Thane, did the government overstep its bounds and simply prosecute Maxwell again as a proxy for Jeffrey Epstein? Essentially, what Randy was pointing to. Your thoughts?
So, Sean, she seems to be making the argument that, of course, the public's outrage, they didn't have an opportunity to have Jeffrey Epstein receive a day in court, so where he could be punished and his accusers could confront him. So, therefore, because she's the last one standing, she deserves some kind of additional constitutional protections. It's oftentimes the case that it's probably true that there is justifiable outrage about Epstein and the fact that he had committed suicide and he didn't have his day in court to be punished. But that doesn't mean she's still not guilty. It still doesn't mean that she wasn't responsible for grooming, recruiting, engaging directly as an accomplice and a co-conspirator in a scheme of sex trafficking. Yes, it's true. The finger of blame is now being pointed on her, and it may also be true that it wouldn't be if Jeffrey Epstein was alive. But that doesn't mean that she's still not guilty of crimes, and that in this case she wasn't found guilty of crimes.
Yeah, found guilty and then, again, sentenced to prison time. That's why we're having this conversation now. She wants to appeal it. Randy, talk to me about the jury's conclusion there and what we might know about the jury members now. Apparently, it's come to light that a member of the jury was an admitted victim of childhood sexual abuse. Of course, that would be very similar to what the victims of Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell would have experienced, and perhaps you could argue bias. Is that sort of what Maxwell is trying to claim?
There is no question here. Two things. First of all, every defendant is presumed innocent. Every defendant is entitled to a fair and impartial jury. And every defendant is entitled to know during what we call voir dire, which is the process of selecting a jury, that a potential juror is asked questions to determine, to assist. So can this person be fair and impartial? Is the defendant going to get a fair and impartial trial? And here we know that juror number 50 lied and had experiences of being a victim where unquestionably, had he disclosed the truth, he would not have been a juror in this case. And even the appearance of that impropriety entitles Ms. Maxwell, at the very least, to a new trial. How could we not question whether or not, in fact, she got a fair trial?
A lot of eyes on this case. We will be following it here at National Report. Randy Zellin out of time here at Thane Rosenbaum. Thank you very much. We appreciate both of you gentlemen.
Thank you.
Live look right now at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. A wild scene unfolded in Israel last night. This one involving the Prime Minister's wife.
Hundreds of Israeli police officers had to be called in to rescue Benjamin Netanyahu's wife after a mob surrounded her at a hair salon. Jerusalem correspondent